Good afternoon. Welcome back to the podcast of Rising Up with Robbie. I have a wonderful guest today. He's a very special person. This is Mark Fucarell, and he is the Boston Marathon survivor, and he has quite a story to tell. Mark, when you and I talked on the telephone, you were telling me a little bit about your experience, and I've looked at a couple of your podcasts, and that helped me a lot to understand. But you've been through an awful lot, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been through quite a
Yeah,
bit. Just a little.
yeah. You were in the hospital for 45 days, and then they had to do multiple procedures. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was at Mass General for 45 days, and then I did another 55 days. I was trying to remember, do the count. 55
Yeah.
days. It's
Well,
called
if you could walk me through a little bit about your day at the Boston Marathon.
Yeah,
What happened? What transitioned? And how are you now?
I'm doing good now. Get that out of the
Good.
way. Um, so the day of the marathon, a buddy of mine had called me the night before, which was a Sunday night, and asked me to go to the marathon, and I declined. And then he informed me that a friend of ours was running, a friend of ours, Mike Jefferson, a Marine, and he's like, "We're gonna go support him." And I said, "Oh, I gotta go if it's Mike J. I gotta go support my buddy, and I have family that's military and stuff, so support him." First marathon at 35 years old, and a group of us went there, and we met up with a couple other people, friends of ours. And we got to our location, which was in front of the Forum Restaurant on Boylston Street, about 300 yards away from the finish line. And we were there talking, watching the race, finding our buddy on the app and his location, realized we had a little bit of time before he got there. So we were going to go get something to eat. We were trying to figure out where. And that's when the first bomb, boom, went off. And I saw it. It was huge. It was shook the whole street. It was pretty scary to witness and see. And then shortly after, 13 seconds to be exact, the second bomb went off. The second bomb happened to be right next to me on my right-hand side, next to the tree behind the Richard family, which we all know Martin Richard was killed that day right there, and as well as Lindsay Liu, the foreign exchange student, at the second bomb. A lot of us at the majority of the amputees, I think, were from the second blast. So me, my buddy Paul, and his brother JP all lost our right leg that day. I was there in and out of consciousness. I watched video footage from the Forum Restaurant security and watched them put me out on fire 3 times. One was a police officer, and then 2 other students put me out. I was kept reigniting. My clothes were on fire. What was left. That day, the bomb actually took me right through the right knee. My right leg was 100% amputated already. There were no more paddy ambulances. They were all full. I was in and out of consciousness talking to Kayla Quinn and a firefighter and a few other people that were there trying to help me. Kayla Quinn actually saved my life, putting the tourniquet on me. And then a police officer named Jimmy Davis was like, when they found out that there was no more ambulances coming, they were like, he's not going to make it. So he's like, I can put him in my paddy wagon, which was a police van. And they picked up me and Roseanne Sedoya and threw us in the paddy wagon, and 2 firefighters jumped in and they rushed us to the hospital. They got us there in 3 minutes to Mass General. And then that's where I bled out. When they pulled me out, I was out 100% at that point. I don't remember getting pulled out of the van. I remember the doors opening at the dock, and then that was it. So yeah, then I spent my long recovery of multiple surgeries. They had induced me into a coma for a few days, and then the pain was, they couldn't even give me enough pain medication. They actually, it pretty bad. And then they give me an epidural to numb the waist down. And I had an epidural in twice to help me with the pain, to be able to.
And that helped.
Yeah, that helped. And then I had burns all over my body. So they stripped the skin off my back, my butt cheek, and skin graft my left leg. my left leg was severely injured. They also found out that I had shrapnel in my heart, in the right atrium of my
Oh,
heart area. So they couldn't figure out how it got in there because there was no penetrations through the chest or through the heart. It actually came up through the artery and lodged in
uh-huh.
my heart. So I am covered in debris, BBs, screws, nails. Yeah, so that's where the process started, recovering from burns. My eardrums were blown out of my head that day. They they skin graft from the armpit and cut the ear open and put the eardrum back on. And so, yeah, I went through a lot. And like I said, I did total up here in between Mass General and Spalding. While I was in Spalding, they kept driving me back, day surgery, bring me back to Spalding, recover for a couple of days, do day surgery, just so they could hold my bed. So
Oh,
it was because they weren't going to be able to get me back into Spalding if they took me out of there for more than the 24 hours.
oh my
So that
gosh.
was pretty wild. Sometimes at Spalding, I had nurses that were floating nurses that came in and they'd be trying to give me medication that I was allergic to. And at different
Oh,
times I wasn't supposed to get things changed. It was quite a rough experience through that. I mean, for the majority of nurses that I did have in physical therapies and occupational therapies, they were amazing. But I did have some pretty ups and downs there. And then I went for the remainder of 2013, I traveled around Boston speaking and seeing different doctors to try to fix my left leg because I couldn't weight bear on it. It was so messed up. And then my right leg actually had 5 revisions on my surgery on my right leg because of infections. It kept getting infected. They had to
oh,
do a wound vax and the wound vax, so it had to heal and then skin graft the end. And it was really bad putting prosthetics. I couldn't get a prosthetic on and keep it on for more than like 15 minutes without it blistering and skin breakdown. It was pretty bad for a couple years.
wow.
Until I was able to, Jessica Kensky was able to get into Walter Reed a year after the bombing in 2014. And she advocated for me for a year down at Spalding between the doctors and the physical therapists about my situation. And finally, they met me at Ski Spectacular with Disabled Sports USA in Breckenridge, Colorado. A couple of the physical therapists and occupational therapists took a picture of my stump and my leg and brought it to the doctors at Walter Reed. And then they scheduled a meeting for me to come in. And I was able to get into Walter Reed. It took 2 years, but in the meantime, after 2013, so 2014, I was traveling to Miami, to New York. I was traveling quite a bit to try to meet with other doctors to try to straighten out my situation. Doctors here were like, "Yeah, we did what we could do. That's everything we do. Everything your doctor did was what we would do, and that's it." And it was became pretty much an elective surgery. So none of them wanted to touch me because I was living fine, but quality was horrible of life. But then when I went to Walter Reed, I had to commit to 365 days of 1 full year to live down at Walter Reed and go through their process, meaning surgeries, mental health, physical therapy, and just the whole 9 yards with them. So I made the commitment. I moved, which after the bombing, I lived in Stoneham. My house that I was living in wasn't going to be converted to handicap accessible, which then I couldn't find any handicap accessible
Yeah.
housing anywhere. We found one in Reading, finally. And again, they only had handicap accessible apartments on 2nd and 3rd floor, which in case of a fire, you can't use elevators.
They're
Doesn't make sense.
gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had no weight bearing either. I couldn't go downstairs. So there's a lot of things that need to change. But anyways, we went through that move over to the Reading apartments. And then I had to move to Walter Reed. And I had bought a house in Reading because my son started school there. He was 5 at the time. So we started kindergarten. And we fell in love with the Reading school, Joshua Eaton, that he went to. We fell in love with a few of the teachers and the people that were there. And the community was so supportive. So we bought in Reading. And then my family moved over to the house in Reading that we bought, which then needed to be converted to handicap accessible. And I went to Walter Reed for a year away from my son and at that time, my now ex-wife, my son's mom. And so that was 2015. I got down there in April. My ex-wife filed for divorce while I was down there at Walter Reed. And then I went back and forth from Walter Reed, Boston, from Bethesda, Maryland. I used to drive home on the weekends to be with my son every weekend, and then also to meet with the lawyers. So yeah, that was a year at Walter Reed, and that was a year process for my divorce. So when I got out of Walter Reed, shortly after that, the divorce was finished. And then I went to being a 50-50 custody with my boy at the time, and I became a single dad.
Uh-huh.
And that's when I started volunteering for nonprofit organizations and helping organizations fundraise money that helped me through my process, which was the best thing, was all the people that helped, and all the organizations that were there for us.
That's
So I was
awesome.
blessed. So that was it. That's pretty
Yeah.
much in a nutshell.
Well, that's an extreme story. I tell you, you spent more time in the hospital than you have enjoying life, it seems like. Um, so you said that you're doing well now. I saw a video where you were doing the marathon and a hand bike. How was that the first time?
I thought it was a great idea, right? First 10 miles, I was like, what was I doing, But the next
Oh,
16 miles are pretty easy. Now, there was a gentleman, a family friend. I graduated with his daughter. I really didn't know Bill back in the day, but Bill McCabe, he was a local guy from my hometown, Stoneham. And my brother's a police officer in that town. He works for the public works department in Stoneham. I graduated with his daughter, Allison. My sister graduated with his oldest daughter. And then I think my sister was in between his son and daughter. I don't know. We were all friends. Like, we all knew each other in the
okay.
town, real small town. And so he started running marathons for his therapy and his thing, and is what he started doing. And he decided he was going to do one marathon for every day I was in that hospital initially. So he decided he was going to do 100 marathons in my honor and fundraise for me.
Wow.
He did it. And that man has done more marathons. He's in the 60s, and he did more marathons than that. And
Wow.
he's 7 marathons, 7 days, and 7 continents. He's one of the elite guys. Wasn't even a runner before.
Oh,
So he inspired me. I said, if this guy can do 100 marathons, I can do at least the Boston Marathon, just to
uh-huh.
thank all the supporters and everybody who supported us. And I got together with the team. So Semper Fi Fund was right to our doorstep right away at the hospital. Amputee Marines came right into the hospital by Friday. We got blown up on Monday. By Friday, they were in our hospital bedrooms, in our hospital rooms with our families, telling them
Wow.
everything's going to support you. And they did. They still do to this day. Greg Hill Foundation, they were in our rehab rooms dropping off checks. It was amazing. So Semper Fi Fund invited us down to the Marine Corps Marathon, all us survivors and amputees, to come down and support the Marine Corps Marathon. And I met a group called Team Achilles. Team Achilles, the Freedom Team, is made up of wounded veterans.
Oh,
So made up of wounded veterans, the Freedom Team is. Achilles International is the big umbrella, which they're worldwide. And they're just people with mobility issues, like people with disabilities running with able-bodied people. That's what, Achilles International is about. It was started by Dick Traum, who was kicked out. But anyways, he founded, he's the man. He created it. He's the legend. He was the first above the knee amputee to run the New York Marathon in 1978.
wow.
So I got tied up with this group, and I started doing the half marathon down in Disney with them until I was healthy enough and strong enough to do the Boston Marathon, which I did. I did the Boston Marathon twice with Team Achilles. I also did New York Marathon twice, and I did the Marine Corps Marathon once, and I did the LA Marathon, and I did Detroit. So I did
Wow.
8 full marathons in 2 years with that team, the Freedom Team. The team of wounded veterans kidnapped me, and I rode with them as they wanted, and then they got that, and then I fundraised for them on different occasions. So yeah, I did the marathon. It was crazy. I never trained, not once, didn't practice, just day of the marathon. I showed up on my bike, And when I first did the first marathon, I had never switched gears on the bike. I didn't know how. I did
Oh,
26.2 miles on a bike I never knew how to ride.
wow. Did you do
Yeah,
anything physically to prepare for that? No, you
no,
just got on the
I was
bike and went.
smoking cigarettes and being a dummy. Like the day of, all the way. I was smoking
Oh
them
my
while I was
God.
driving. I
Oh,
wasn't the smartest gentleman back then. I was pretty much a loose cannon and didn't, there was no telling me what to do back then. I was in different dark places at different dark times,
yeah,
but my support team got me through everything. And
yeah.
people, strangers.
That's awesome. Um, now that you're still recovering, you'll probably recover for a long time. Um,
Yeah.
but now that you have your left leg is no, your right leg has been amputated and your left leg's not doing well. Do you have a prosthetic? Can you wear it now? Because you said and when you first got it for a couple of years, you couldn't wear it. Is that something you can do now?
Yeah. Like I said, I could wear them, but not for any length of time without having some serious skin breakdown and get infections or
Uh,
blisters. Uh, so I was able to wear it, but I was always chasing, trying to find a brace for my left leg because I couldn't weight bear. I couldn't walk for long periods of time. And when I mean long period of time, I mean 15, 20 minutes. I'd be in so much pain in my left foot. It was crazy. I've had numerous surgeries on my left foot. The most surgeries was on my left leg. Um,
oh,
Pretty severe, but finally at Walter Reed, they built this brace. So I have to
oh,
wear this brace to be able, it offloads from my foot to my shin and knee. So I can weight bear on my leg, but not my foot. So yeah, my left leg's 100% skin graft from the knee down.
oh my.
And yeah, and the back of it, 50% of the top of my left leg is skin graft.
Same
So
thing.
yeah, I wear a prosthetic now. I can go 8 to 10 hours, no problem.
Okay,
Sometimes pain kicks in. Uh, sorry, put my
that's
leg
all
back.
right. Get that shoe on.
I do
Well,
have, I do have that.
yeah, that's your right leg. Your right
My right
leg.
leg. My
Uh-huh.
right leg. Yeah. Are
Yeah, I have two of those. Yeah,
you
I'm a
above or below?
below bilateral.
Okay.
Circulation. Didn't even know I was having a problem. So now is I keep wanting to ask you some questions that you and I talked one time on the telephone,
Yep.
and you were telling me some things about the trial. Has everything? I guess everything's been resolved, correct?
No, he's still appealing. And again, with this administration that's in office, they stopped all federal death sentences anyways, so nobody will be put to
Yeah.
death. I just don't trust our system anymore at all because, like Obama released those 5 Guantanamo Bay prisoners for that one American soldier who was a traitor. He wasn't kidnapped; he was a traitor.
Yeah.
And those 4 out of those 5 actually are the ones that took back over when Joe Biden pulled out of Iraq, Afghanistan.
Oh,
And they came over. So, and then with COVID, after witnessing COVID and speaking with a few news guys that were covering stories about, people that were out living amongst us that were convicted double murderers and waiting for their sentences and sentencing, but they couldn't get sentenced and couldn't go to jail because of COVID. People say, but you can ask, I can't even say because the gentleman that works for the news things like I can't even, I'm covering the story, but I can't talk about it because
I
I'll lose my
understand.
job.
Don't want
So
to
he
leave the
that
job.
so I'm trying to no him he couldn't so he
Oh, okay.
I respect him for not I respect not saying his name and what type of
Gotcha.
things that he was covering that his station actually shut his lips on, which is
Uh-huh.
insane. I'm like, speech press, that's what you're supposed to be about, telling us what's going on. But so I worry. I mean, I'd love to see him sit in jail and suffer and not like, as what how I believe is not playing God, but at the same thing, an eye for an eye. I just like him gone. And then if he's dead and gone, and we don't have to talk about, like, technically we don't have to talk about him, right? Or we can talk about him, but he can't appeal. Like, he keeps appealing and wasting taxpayers' dollars over stuff like, oh, I can't wear my hat. They took my hat away. So he's suing the Massachusetts, Justice Department, or he's suing the Colorado court, the prison, I mean, come on, right? Like, you killed a whole bunch of people, you injured a lot more, and you mutilated 17 amputees from the Boston Marathon. There's 17 amputees from the marathon. And you're going to argue and sue and waste taxpayers' dollars with your... So he has defense lawyers right now. They're still appealing. They've been doing it ever since. They're making a ton of money off of this guy, even though he's just convicted, admitted to it, and there's video evidence. So yeah, the trial, it bothers me. Like, I just don't trust our system no more in that sense. Like,
Understand.
it's crazy. Pedophiles and people and sex offenders and crazy, and is continuously letting people out of jail. Like, I don't see that this kid would never not get out of jail. They're like, oh, he was 18, he didn't know. And then, like, oh, he did 50 years, he's only 78, 68. Now we're gonna let him out because, he's rehabilitated. And, like, who knows, like, the crackpots that will be running our justice system in 25 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, look at New York City, look at Chicago, look at LA. It's disgusting. I mean, the Woburn police officer right next to my house was shot after the Massachusetts system let this guy out who was a convicted, numerous, like, violent offender. He gets out, he goes and robs a jewelry store at Kohl's, comes out, gets a shootout with the cops, and kills this Woburn police officer who was like 2 months away from retiring, one of my mom's friends. It's like, when are you guys gonna learn? If you convict, if you're a multiple offender, there is, at that point, there's no rehabilitation for 90% of them. You know what I mean? So you're gonna take a chance.
And crime has escalated in most of the major cities. Crime is a nightmare.
And how are you gonna defend yourself against these criminals that no offense, they're Democratic liberal policies. That's what it is. Those are facts. I'm not choosing Republican or Democrat. I'm just saying the liberal Democratic policies that change the laws are a certain breed of people that keep letting these criminals out, trying to rehabilitate and let them go, but they're not changing the jail systems to actually rehabilitate, right? So it's really scary, and they want to take away guns. How do you defend yourself as a full amputee if you don't have a firearm? My wife I was blessed, and I actually met my now wife, Nicole Browder, who was born with no arms and no leg. So she's congenital, no arms, no leg, and a half a little leg with a little foot with 3 toes. So me and her are out at Walmart, right? People are like, oh, get rid of all guns. Well, criminals don't care. They'll use a knife, or they'll use a bat, or they'll use acid. That's what they do in other countries, right? Everybody's like, oh, America's the only ones that have gun violence. Well, okay, because other countries use acid, hoods, knives, baseball bats, cars, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even need the guy who's going to hurt me and my wife in my physical condition. How do I defend my wife against a guy or 2 guys that are just going to Walmart to beat the crap out of somebody? Or they get mad because my wife drives in front of them with her wheelchair, or she's going too slow, and they decide they want to attack us. How do I defend myself against these criminals that they just let out? You can't.
Yeah.
So it's a scary situation, and nothing I ever thought about when I first became an amputee until I was in 2 predicaments. One was in LA, when I was doing the LA Marathon. I took my service dog out to go to 11:30 at night, and I was in downtown LA. Nobody was around in this area near my hotel. Nobody, right? Everybody else was in bed getting ready because we had to be up at 3:30 in the morning to go to the start line. So I just figured out, I'm like, all right, I'll take my dog out late, let him go to the bathroom, I'll leave him in the hotel, I'll go do the marathon, I'll come back, get him, take him out. So I wanted to wait as long as I could to take him out. And so I was in my wheelchair, no prosthetic on. This gentleman, well, I want to call him a gentleman, this guy, girlfriend or wife or somebody, this other girl was pushing a baby carriage. It was 11:30 at night on the street. I had my dog on a leash, and then they walked right by me. They were smoking weed. No big deal, whatever. I don't know what was in the weed or whatever, but out of no reason, I just started hearing from behind me, I'll effing kill you. I'll kill you. Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? Is this guy going to hurt this girl? right? Like they get in a fight, and I turn around, and the guy back up the street screaming at me,
At
and he's
you.
pointing, and I look at me, and there's nobody behind me. I'm like, "Are you talking to me?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm talking to you. I'm gonna kill you." And I'm like, "Here I go." I survived a bomb, but now I'm in LA in a wheelchair, and this beat me, and I had no way of defending myself. I'm like, what am I gonna do? So the girl, he was about 6 foot, maybe 6'1", 6'2", big guy, probably 200 something pounds, right? And just coming up the street, and here's this little 90-pound crackhead looking girl. No offense, she looked like she was strung out on crack, probably about maybe 80, 90 pounds. And she's pushing the guy back, like trying to push him back. And he's just pushing her up the road. He's coming. I'm like, this is how it goes.
Yeah.
Welcome to LA, and then finally she was able to stop him and turn him around, and he just walked away. And I was like, oh my God. And I couldn't go back. Like I couldn't go backwards because it was cars were driving by. It was a street. They had just crossed over the street, and I was on the corner. So I couldn't go anywhere. And he was in between me and my hotel. So I couldn't go back to the hotel because I was trying, and nobody was around. So yeah, it's just, and so that incident, and then another incident where I was driving down the double lane road in Stoneham, and some guy was High Street, but there was 2 roads coming north and there's 2 roads going south. And he was coming through the north lanes to get into the south lane, which I was in. And I was in the far lane away from him. So he could have came out, but he couldn't because there was other cars coming. Well, I just drove in my lane, stopped at the red light. He pulled out, came next to me and started screaming, rolled down his window. And I was smoking a cigarette, which I don't do anymore, but I was smoking a cigarette and my window was down. And he's screaming through the window of his truck, passenger side window, into my truck. And then the guy goes, and I just thought about throwing my cigarette at him, telling him to shut up, but I didn't. I said, whoa, wait a second. This guy's a little not all there. So I just waved to him like, yep, okay, buddy. And so I was ignoring him, and I'm waiting for the light to turn, and this car's in front of us, so I can't go nowhere. The car's behind me. He gets out of his car, comes around the front of his truck to come up to my door, and the light turned green, and I just drove away. And I was like, well, what if that light, or he had got out earlier? How would I had no leg on. I had just had, I had some issues with my socket, so I didn't have a leg. So I was with no leg, no way to defend myself. This guy's
There's no way.
I'm like,
No way.
this is something I never thought about, becoming an amputee, right? Like, how am I going to defend myself? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, now I'm a licensed gun holder in numerous states, and I carry a gun everywhere I go.
I bet you
And
do.
I train and I practice though too. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to pull it out and accidentally hit something or shoot somebody by accident. Like if I need it, you do it. And I owe that. And so don't all gun owners. They owe that to anybody. You carry one, you need to know how to handle it properly, because you could actually do more damage.
My
So,
sister, my sister goes with me everywhere I go. So, and she's a gun carrier. So at least I have that. But you're right.
Pepper spray. Have it everywhere in your house, have it in your bathroom, have it in your kitchen, and have it by the door. Those are the 3 main places you have it. And have it on you at all times. I carry pepper spray. I have it in my truck because I don't want to shoot somebody. I just want to, if I have to, I'll use this. Violently come up to me. Like 90% of people aren't going to have a gun or a knife. They're just going to want to fight you because they're, and I don't want to shoot somebody who just wants to fight me. But fighting, you could fight me and just one punch could kill me. Like that doesn't mean you're not trying to kill me, Like you don't mean to kill people when you punch them, but that happens. So I do carry pepper spray. My first line of defense would always be pepper spray, unless the threat and violence was substantial. Then my first line of defense would be my firearm. As an amputee, we do need to think about protecting ourselves.
Yeah. Well, Mark, I understand we're about out of time. I apologize. I wish we could have 2 hours to talk to you. I do appreciate you making the time to come talk with me. And thank you so much.
I think we've been 25 minutes. We have a couple more minutes, I think, no?
Well, it came up that said we will end in 10 minutes, and that was about 4 minutes ago. But we can go a little bit longer.
I know that when you spoke to me, you want to help amputees and help them know that things get better, right? We talked about
Exactly.
that. There's light at the end of the tunnel. Resources, 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 resources. There are a lot of resources out there in community groups that you need to talk to each other. Amputees need to talk to each other, right? And explain
Uh-huh.
what works for me. Might not work for you, but it might. So I always recommend is finding support groups. Support is what got me to where I am today. Complete strangers have supported me this whole journey. And like I told my buddy yesterday, I said, I don't know where I'd be if people didn't support me. I said, truthfully, he's like, I can't believe your attitude is always so positive. You know, you're always in a good mood. Like you do everything. I skydive. I've done everything since I've been blown up. I ski. I do mono ski. There's so much. I did kayaking. I adaptive kayaking. There's a lot for amputees, but they just need to ask for help and talk to each other.
Yeah.
That's what I feel, right?
And that's one thing I'm remiss in is I have not contacted a support group. And it's been since last December. So that's good advice. And I'm going to take your advice and find a support group. I
Yeah,
agree.
just find activities with, so even like I know some people like, oh, I'm not an athlete, but it's about going to the events. I do sled hockey. I just won the sled hockey, my division. Me and my buddy Jeff Bowman actually convinced me. I didn't want to do it. I was hesitant, and sorry, I had to grab my
Oh,
headphone charger. He I didn't want to do it, but me and my buddy Jeff were shooting. His legs, he's a double amputee. His legs ran out of juice, and he needed to charge them before he could drive. So I waited with him, and we talked. And he's like, "Why don't you play hockey with me? Let's play sled hockey." And I said, "Nah, my shoulders are all beat up from the wheelchair and everything." I said, and finally, my wife Nikki convinced me to go practice one time with them. And I used to play hockey, and I loved it. I fell in love with other people, with all the crew, everybody. And I mean, then other people in amputees, they don't play, they just come and support it, they come and watch it. I mean, it's just the atmosphere, the environment, and the people. And then you learn from each other what works and doesn't work.
sure. What I'm hearing is you're telling people to live, to continue to enjoy life. There are things that you can do that you probably think you'll never be able to do, but here is a living legend. I
Yeah,
mean,
I never thought
sitting,
I could do it.
yeah, but look what you've done.
I came a long way as I volunteered and mentor kids with missing limbs and limb differences through
Ah,
Camp No Limits. I donate my time to them. I fundraise for them. Camp No Limits. You should look at it. Camp No Limits
I
is in 9
will.
different states. And you go there and just see the enjoyment that these kids have in life. And that's what taught me how to live life, with these young children that were born with missing limbs and limb differences.
Oh,
Or
yeah.
young kids at a young age that lost their leg. So I never thought the world opened me up. So being an amputee opened me up to a whole nother world. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It really
sure.
did. It opened me up to a whole group of new people, new friends, new activities. And then that's what you gotta, like a lot of people like, oh my God, I have kids. Well, when I had my kid, I was doing a whole bunch of different stuff, had a baby, and then that opened me up to a whole bunch of new stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh,
And
sure.
so being an amputee, I took that mentality with having a child, realizing that it opened me up to fun and different activities. As an amputee, I took that same approach. It opened me up to different opportunities and different group of people. So that's what
Great advice,
amputees need to
Mark.
do.
Great advice.
Thank
Well, it looks,
you for reaching out to me.
oh, I read about you on the internet and I said, I've got to call that guy and see if he will. And you did. And I appreciate it so much. You're an
Well, that's it. Everybody
amazing,
has to.
amazing person. And
Yep,
you've
we have to
taught
be
me
there
a
for each
lot.
other.
Yeah, you've
Well,
taught me a lot.
ever need, if you need anything, reach back out. Don't hesitate. If you ever want me to
Okay.
come back on, we can talk about other stuff other than, my journey of that day, which takes up always a lot of time.
Right.
Unfortunately, we still have 4 minutes. It says 3 minutes, but yeah, I reach out to me anytime. I'm going to be starting my own podcast coming up. I have
Good.
markfuckerell.com, my website. I sell t-shirts on there with the Boston Strong, with the amputee logo, with my prosthetic in it. I have Mark Fuckerell Strong with my prosthetic in it. Yeah, I'm going to be doing amputee shooting. That's another brand that I'm doing. Yeah, I'm going to be just trying to help people, and what you're doing is amazing. I mean, I like, hats off. Like, I appreciate you doing this, and I appreciate you asking me to be here.
Well, it's my
It's
pleasure.
more of us need to do it.
I was in the hospital for 16 months, and
Oh,
everybody kept saying God's got a purpose for you. He keeps you living. And I was talking to Peter uh, about maybe doing motivational speaking. And he said, "Well, how about a podcast?" I said, "I don't know anything about doing a podcast." He said, "But I do." So therein lies the story with that. And I'm very pleased that I was able to do it. And my philosophy is, if I can reach one person, I've done my job.
yep. Nope. No, that was so Disabled Sports USA brought us out to Ski Spectacular. Me, my son, and my family at the time. And we're in Breckenridge, Colorado. And they said, "Mark, would you do the media day for us? You don't seem shy." I'm like, "No, I'm not shy. I'll do it." And they go, "But it's going to take a whole day away from your family. Are you okay with that?" I said, "I'm okay with that. As long as I can help one person doing this interview and showing people a new sport or something somebody could learn, I'll do it." And years later, a gentleman reached out to me and told me the story about his sister, who they had numerous interventions with, who had lost her legs, was sitting on the couch, and just felt bad for herself and became like obese and diabetic. Well, she saw my interview from that ski thing, and it motivated her. She said, "If it's been 3 years or something, if he can do it 6 months after his bomb losing his leg, I can do it. There's no excuse." So she got up. He said she started living, and she started hiking and doing all this stuff. And I was just like, wow, that's why I did it. Same
That's
reason you
right.
do. And that's why I wanted to be on your podcast,
Oh,
so I
well,
could
I
help you do
appreciate
that.
it. I appreciate it.
Cool.
Again, Mark, I think I'm about ready to close. And I know we probably have a couple of more minutes.
One,
But
you have to do your closing.
to be honest with you, I don't trust these computer things. So it was a pleasure meeting you. And
Thank you.
thank you
Likewise.
again for being here. And I will reach out to you again.
Yeah, anytime.
Thank you, Mark. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.